want to talk about Iran's nuclear program?
I do. Yeah, let's roll through it. So the nuclear program.
Yeah. So the Ayatollah, W. Bush puts Iran, Iraq, and North Korea in the axis of evil in 2002. And of all the preposterous lies, Saddam and the Ayatollah are allies when no two men in the world hate each other more than these two, right? And they're allies with Osama bin Laden, who is no friend of the Ayatollah and who Saddam Hussein is obviously deathly afraid of and has nothing to do with whatsoever. And then Kim in North Korea, which he had sold some missiles to Iran, but they got no tight alliance. And I think it's pretty clear that the only reason that they put North Korea in there is because if they had said the axis of evil is Iran, Iraq, and Syria, you might have wondered whether the speech was written in Tel Aviv or not. So they went ahead and threw North Korea in there. That's a whole other interview. I like talking about that one too. But so Saddam Hussein's strategy is to say, here's my 12,000-page dossier on all the weapons I ever had. It's the same stuff his son-in-law Hussein Kamel had given up in 1995. There was nothing else to show. They knew by the end of 95 he'd given up everything. Any weapons left in the country had been declared and had just been left there by the inspectors to rot in the sun. Shelf life expired anyway. They had no nuclear program or any of that stuff. But it just wasn't good enough. They were able to just buffalo us into that war no matter what. The North Koreans, they were bullied. I'll skip the details, but people can read How Bush Pushed North Korea to Nukes by Gordon Prather. It's the last article the great Gordon Prather wrote for us at antiwar.com. It's really great. It explains how they essentially bullied Kim into leaving the treaty and starting to make nukes, which you notice we don't mess with North Korea anymore.
No, can't.
The Ayatollah in Iran took a different tactic. In fact, I'll go ahead and throw in Libya. Gaddafi didn't have a nuclear program. He just had warehouses full of crates full of junk that he bought from the Pakistanis. He didn't have the men with the know-how to build a nuclear program of any description anyway, but that was enough for him to trade away to Bush for normalization. It was 7 years later that Barack Obama stabbed him in the back, literally lynched him to death.
Stabbed him in the rectum, I think, with a bayonet.
And then shot him in the side of the head on the side of the road. But then the Ayatollah said, look, my books are open. I'm part of the Non-Proliferation Treaty. I have a safeguards agreement with the IAEA. Hands up, don't shoot. You have no casus belli here. And that has been essentially his strategy this whole time. Now, they made facilities at Natanz and later at Fordo. The War Party says that these were top secret facilities that were only revealed by Israel. That's not true. They did buy junk from AQ Khan, the Pakistani nuclear technology supplier, distributor, but only because America wouldn't let them buy a light water reactor from China. If Bill Clinton had just let the Chinese sell them a light water reactor, which cannot produce weapons fuel as waste, then everything would have been fine then. But they basically drove them to the black market where they got uranium enrichment equipment, and they started enriching uranium at Natanz in 2005. Now, they weren't in violation of the deal because the deal says you have to announce within 6 months before introducing nuclear material in any machines that you're going to do so. And they did that. And they have developed, quite frankly, a latent nuclear deterrent. So that makes them what they call a threshold state, the same as Brazil or Germany or Japan, meaning they've proven they've mastered the fuel cycle. They know how to enrich uranium. They could enrich up to weapons grade, but so let's not fight and we won't have to go that far. So that's essentially what they've had this whole time. The Americans, Washington, D.C., during the W. Bush years, they just lied that there's a secret parallel nuclear program that's really a nuclear weapons program that's going on there too. And the IAEA can't find it, but trust us, it's there. And they never explained it because they couldn't, because they were lying. They just heavily implied it all the time. Secret, illicit nuclear weapons program, as though the thing existed, which it never did. And we almost went to war over it a couple of times, but it was stopped in 2007 by the commander of CENTCOM, Admiral Fallon, and then later the CIA and the National Intelligence Council put out their NIE of November 2007 saying they have not decided to make nuclear weapons. Bush complained in his memoir, W. Bush, that, well, how was I supposed to attack them? He said, oh, I'm so sorry, Your Highness, to the King of Saudi Arabia. I can't attack them because my own intelligence agencies say they're not making nukes. And if they don't have a military program, I can't do anything. So his hands were tied, he thought. And then this was essentially the status quo until Obama comes in and Netanyahu comes in right before Obama does. It comes back to power. And he starts threatening like he's going to attack Iran and drag us into it. At this point, Zbigniew Brzezinski even said, if Netanyahu flies planes over Iraq to attack Iran, Obama should shoot them down over Iraq. So I know Robert Kennedy says Brzezinski was the founder of the neoconservative movement, but no, he was never a neocon, and they hated each other sometimes. They worked together on Russia issues. He was a two-state solution guy and definitely not a Likudnik, and not on Iran especially. Obama was, I think, really worried. And a lot of people were really worried that Netanyahu was going to start the war in his first term and drag him into it. And so the way to prevent that was to create the JCPOA, the Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action, the John Kerry nuclear deal.
That was the point of it.
That was the point, was we already have an NPT and we already have a safeguards agreement, but essentially everybody's pretending that they don't exist. The Western media is following the Likud party line that there's essentially nothing stopping Iran from making a nuke right now if we don't hit them. So Obama said, fine, we'll just add another layer of deal on top of that. So,
but the Iran deal was a way to keep Netanyahu from starting a war with Iran and dragging us in.
Yes, although
I feel like
I think he was bluffing.
Movie.
I don't think Netanyahu really was going to do it back then. I think he did it here because he had Trump's permission. I'm not certain of that. I don't know if you know, but I don't know that it's really clear exactly, but I think at that time he was really just bluffing and was trying to get Obama to do something, at least to roll back their program, if not completely eliminate it. But so what they did was the JCPOA, Trump called it the worst deal that any men ever signed or whatever. It's just not really true. I mean, what it did was it severely rolled back their nuclear program. So they poured concrete in their Arak, that's ARAK, their Arak heavy water reactor. They severely restricted the number of centrifuges spinning at Natanz by 2/3, I believe it was. They turned the Fordo, or the COM facility, into a research-only facility, no uranium production there. And then the deal is that they wanted to, the American side wanted for Iran to export any stockpile of enriched nuclear material out of the country, so that if they withdrew from the treaty and kicked the inspectors out of the country and started beating their chest and declared, now we're making a bomb, it would take them a year. This is what they call the breakout period. It would take them a year to have enough fissile material to make a single gun-type nuke out of. And so they wanted to make it that difficult. So they would have to ship out all their uranium to France, and the French would turn it into fuel rods and ship it back, and they would burn that in their heavy water reactor. Now, there's two routes to the nuclear bomb. Forget the H bomb for a minute. We're just talking about fission bombs, atom bombs. The plutonium route, like the Nagasaki bomb, was already precluded because even though their heavy water reactor produces plutonium waste, it's heavily polluted with other isotopes. And so you need a reprocessing facility to get all that out to make usable fuel. They don't have that reprocessing facility. The Russians had the right to come and get all their waste and take it back to Russia to be diluted down there. So there was no plutonium route to the bomb. Now, the uranium route to the bomb is interesting because, and this is something that you may have been referring to about I make corrections when I'm wrong. I had overstated this on the Piers Morgan show and on Breaking Points last week and 2 weeks ago. And so I was trying to fix that with this statement. And they did let me go back on Breaking Points to address it. That what I had said wrongly was that you can't really make an implosion bomb that you could miniaturize out of uranium. And that's not correct. You can. What you can't do is make a gun-type nuke out of plutonium. And I had overstated that. But my point more or less still stands, because my point was that if Iran broke out and raced to a bomb in that 1 year breakout capability, it's virtually like unanimous among the experts that if they wanted to race and get a bomb as fast as they could, it would be a simple gun-type nuke like the kind America dropped on Hiroshima, which is essentially a uranium slug fired into a uranium target, and it just causes a supercritical mass there. But to do that, it's too big to miniaturize and fit onto Iran's missiles in their nose cones or any of that. So if they raced to a nuke, they would have one that they could test in the desert, but they couldn't really deliver other than strap it to the back of a flatbed truck or like put it in an airliner or something,
right,
which they couldn't get to Israel and they couldn't use it. If they were to even make an implosion bomb with uranium, though, it would take years worth of testing and development to get the implosion system right to make it work. So they couldn't race toward a bomb